So there are some berry plants that you can plant and get fruit the very year that you plant them, which is pretty amazing because most of our fruit that we put, especially when you're talking about fruit trees, it can take up to 7 years before you get any type of fruit production. However, in order to get fruit off of these berry plants the very first year, you have to know what variety to get. It's very important. Otherwise, it's going to take a couple years. So for your raspberries, if you get autumn bearing or ever bearing raspberry plants and you plant them in the spring, you will get fruit that end of summer moving into fall. But you have to make sure that you're not getting summer bearing or June bearing raspberries. They must be that ever bearing or autumn bearing varieties. Then you can also get fruit the very first year off of your strawberries. So the great thing about strawberries is you don't have to have any type amount of land. They grow really well in containers. You can see here I've got my green stalk vertical planter. I planted these strawberries last February, so a year ago. And you can actually see they're greening out and are beginning to get ready for spring. But the important thing to know, even though you can get fruit with strawberries that very first year, you only want to let each of your strawberry plants give you 2 strawberries. You need to pinch off all of the other blossoms. So while you will get fruit that first year, you're not going to get a huge crop off your strawberries. But if you do that and you pinch it off, you're still going to have some enjoyment and have a couple of berries per plant. But that means that you'll let the root system develop really well, and then the following 2 years, you will get a really good strawberry crop. And strawberries, it's important to note that they only really produce for about 3 years. So that second year, you'll get all kinds of little runners. So you don't have to buy any more new strawberry plants. You'll get all kinds of little runners, and you just let those root and become your new strawberry plants. So they definitely replenish themselves, but you'll want to note your original crowns and plants. And after 3 years, you'll remove them and you'll just let their babies take over. Okay, so the third berry that you can plant and get fruit the very same year is going to be blackberries, but not all blackberries. So here we have some Himalayan and broadleaf blackberries. They grow wild where we live. In fact, they're quite invasive. They're labeled as a noxious weed. They just take over everywhere. But they will not give you fruit the first year that you plant them. There's actually only a couple of varieties, which are a hybrid variety, that were developed by a university that if you plant will produce fruit off the first year's canes. So I will have linked for you below the video. There's different links and resources for looking at different varieties, and we will include the exact varieties of blackberry that will produce fruit that first year, because just any old variety and the wild blackberries will not do that. Now, you will definitely not get blueberries the first year you put in a blueberry plant, but they are worth mentioning because they will give you a lot of fruit for years to come. However, your blueberry plants, you don't want to let the blossoms form into fruit until the plant is about 3 years old, because you do want to let that root system get really well developed. They're a little bit more similar to a fruit tree in that regards than the raspberries and the blackberries and the strawberries. You really want to let that root system get well developed, because the blueberry will produce fruit for you, if it's a well taken care of plant, for upwards of even 30 plus years. My parents own an old blueberry farm. Some of the plants have got to be 40 years old there, and they are still producing, which is amazing for a berry plant. Normally, like your raspberries, strawberries are only 3 years. Raspberries and blackberries can be up to 20 years, 10 to 20 years, just kind of depending, because they'll send out new canes and kind of replenish themselves. But blueberries will give you fruit for a really long time. The other great thing is you will actually get quite a bit of blueberries per plant, which is great. But blueberries are a compacted bush. So they are something that you can actually grow in a container if you don't have a large amount of space. And you can grow raspberries, and obviously strawberries are in containers very easily as well, and blackberries in containers. One thing to keep in mind though is you do want to have the larger container, the better. So I would do like one of the half whiskey barrels or a 20-gallon. A really large container is going to be best when you're trying to grow your fruit in there. Of course, when it's a really small, and there are more compact varieties of blueberries that you can get that are made more for container growing. So if you have a patio or a yard, or maybe you're renting and you're like, I don't really want to plant anything in the ground because fruit plants aren't super expensive, but they're not really that cheap either. And so I know when we were renting, we didn't want to make the investment and plant all this stuff in the ground we knew would be moving. So these can be some great things that you can still grow in containers. It won't harm the plant at all, but then you have the ability to take it with you when you do move, but you're getting a jump start on your fruit production and you're not waiting to get those things growing. So for different varieties that are more compact and that grow more better. I've got some awesome grammar. Grow better, you can check out the blog post on those as well. If you want to know how many berry plants you need per person for a year's worth of fruit for your family, I've got some free charts that list out all of the fruits, including fruit trees and berries, that you can go and snag. And I'll have the link below, and you can also click on that, or you can go to melissaknorris.com/fruit charts.